What is up, Scyushi Squad? We are back again for some more Genshin Impact, and today is going to be the first of hopefully many character tutorial videos. Now, I gotta give you guys a heads up. Unlike other YouTubers, I don't use food. I'm not gonna be hopping in a domain or doing any sort of weird clickbait to show my damage numbers at a much higher value or anything like that. It just tilts me when I see other people do that. I'm going to be showing you a bare bones, full-on. This is going to be the character out in the wild, okay? So we're going to be doing some normal fighting of enemies and stuff, and then I'll kind of give you some numbers and talk about how we're going to end up doing some damage in domains and stuff like that. But for the most part, I do got to give you guys a heads up that my Zhongli does have Constellation 6, which means that my damage obviously is really, really high. But this build that I'm going to be showing you guys today is absolutely accessible, not being pay to win. I mean, for crying out loud, I don't even have a 5-star spear on this guy because I don't have a 5-star spear because I cash whaled for Zhongli and then I'm broke now. So no, but anyways, there's going to be two different builds that I'm going to be showing you guys today, which one is going to end up being a full-on physical DPS build, and then the other is going to be what I use, which is kind of a weirdo hybrid burst build. The thing is that I got to give you guys a heads up on is that Zhongli now, since the buffs of 1.3, can end up being built towards whatever the heck you want. Like, if you end up building Zhongli towards nothing but HP, sure, you're not going to end up doing that much damage with the character because his damage abilities don't scale as well as just raw damage does with his abilities or anything like that. But the point is that your shield is going to scale off of your HP. So my shield already with around like 20k health is already able to tank most enemies in the game, save a few. Let alone if you ended up having much more health, you would just be able to tank, I guess, pretty much everything in the entire game. Like, his shield is insane now just because the Geo shields have had a rework as well. This works across the board with all characters. Noelle benefits from it as well. But anyways, you can end up building Zhongli towards just tanking and keeping everybody alive, full-on support. But again, for today, we're going to be focusing on two different damage builds. So right now, I actually have him set up for a full physical damage build. And I'm going to end up showing you guys a little bit of an example. Did any of these enemies end up respawning? I gotta find a test subject. Okay, maybe there'll be something over here. So basically, this is going to be a 4-piece gladiator set for the bonus, and then we're using the crescent pike. And I'll show my stats. I'll show my I'll show everything, all the artifacts and stuff like that, a little bit in a little bit, just so I can end up showing you guys my full-on damage. So here's a bunch of hilichurls. This isn't going to be the best example, guys, but just know that these damage numbers are going to apply to big boy enemies as well. So obviously you're going to be throwing down your shield, which now, since his rework, it's going to cast down a Steely if you don't already have one. And you can see our damage is already really good. I've calculated, and on average, a full combo can end up doing somewhere around like 16 to 20k damage just with his full attack combo. That's just his auto attacks based on a physical build. So you can pretty much wreck everything in the game. Obviously, you're not reliant on your Geo resonance and stuff like that as much, so it's not going to end up doing as much damage to focus on just Geo alone, is what I'm saying. But the ideal conditions, if you want to absolutely destroy things, is you cast one, you cast the other one with holding your E or your RT. I use a controller on PC because then you're having this conduit go down, and that is just extra damage. The other thing too is that with this build not having anything focused on Geo, unfortunately it does mean that our ultimate ability is going to be disgusting. My ult does anywhere between 15 to 20k, which to me is gross. Like, that's just really weak, especially considering the long attack animation of his ultimate ability. But it ends up being worthwhile just because you're going to be using your ult more so for the utility of petrifying the enemies rather than using it for the damage, just because you're already doing crazy damage anyways with your attacks. And if you're wondering why you're seeing so many extra damage numbers going on right there, that's because of the crescent pikes. So anyways, let's talk about the current build, the artifacts and stuff like that before we move on to the other build. I want to reassure you guys that this physical build works on pretty much anything in the game, and I have tested it out. The two different builds in the game, which we'll talk about the other build in a minute, are very, very comparable. But anyways, let's get into the the physical nitty gritty. So you can see my stats are not absolutely ideal. My crit damage is not as high as I would like, but I'm honestly, it doesn't really matter as much. We're going to be using the Crescent Pike because what the Crescent Pike does is it's a weirdo weapon that doesn't explain its effect very well, because what it does is every time you attack, the pike itself is actually doing a secondary attack. That's why you see so many damage numbers, because we're basically having two different damage numbers going off at the same time. And the thing is that the reason why the Crescent Pike can end up being so OP is because while our base attacks are going to end up scaling off of our crit, you know, obviously you can end up gaining some crit damage, the pike's damage also scales off of crit. So you can have the secondary pike damage that's going off at the same time as your normal attack, by the way, that can end up critting individually. So that's why the pike ends up being one of the best weapons in the game for a lot of polearm users, just because of the fact that it can end up doing that extra double damage going on. But it also has the physical damage percentage. The base attack on it is actually really high for a 4-star weapon. Yeah. So anyways, again, full gladiator set. You can see that the set is actually giving me a pretty decent amount of stats. So whatever. Let's just hop into it. So the stats that you're going to be focusing on is obviously the main stat is going to end up being the absolute best damage stat that you can get, whereas the substats, what you're looking out for is attacks, attack percentage, max health is actually good on Zhongli now because of the way that it scales. You obviously don't want to have max HP as the main stat. The flower always has HP as the main stat, but my point is you're building it towards a standard damage build, which you know, is going to include everything under the sun. The stats that you're going to want to watch out for that you don't necessarily want for Zhongli is if you're going for a physical build, you don't want your energy recharge as much because you're not as reliant on your ult. You don't want defense, and you do not want elemental mastery because we're talking about a Geo character. So anyways, there's my flower, here's my feather, which this one is perfect for Zhongli. This is, you know, this is actually ideal stats just because of that extra health, the crit rate, crit damage, attack percentage, whatever. This one's actually really good as well outside of if the energy region was swapped over to another stat like raw attack, and then if that defense was swapped over to HP, that would be a little bit more ideal, but you know, again, whatever. So this one might actually scale a little bit better that I have on Alberto just because it's got the extra health to it, but you can see the defense rolls on it are pretty high comparably. And then for the goblet, well, this one you want to go for attack percentage, by the way, rather than energy recharge or something else. And then the goblet, you're going to be going for physical damage boost. You can see this one is not bad. You know, obviously the defense isn't that great, and again, it has the energy recharge, but whatever. You know, beggars can't be choosers when it comes to the goblet. You don't need to necessarily have this goblet be gladiator. Pretty much just any goblet that you have that has the stat that you need, like this could be a useful goblet for a Geo character just because it's got the Geo damage bonus, so long as it didn't roll into defense. But the point is that you can use whatever goblet you want regardless of the type that it is. Just if you do focus on the other the artifacts actually being the ones that you need. So I ended up getting pretty fortunate in actually having a full-on gladiator one, and then I used this hat right here, which is just for the extra crit rate, because obviously my crit rate is going to end up being pretty low. The whole thing about Zhongli is that his crit rate and his crit damage don't scale up when he ascends like other 5-star characters, because technically he's not supposed to be a full DPS, and this is why it can end up being really difficult to end up building this character for damage. However, you can see even regardless of all of that, he still slaps like a truck. Like, he's really powerful. So I've compared these two builds. This is like the physical damage build is if you have Zhongli as your main DPS. And more so, I would recommend if you have, like if you're joining your friends and all you have is one character to play as, because maybe you're in a full party of 4 players or something like that, then you would end up building your Zhongli towards this physical build, just because that's where you're going to end up having all of your damage and stuff like that. I've tested it in domains countless times. Most of all, I use domains as a timer. You know, I try to see, okay, how fast can I complete the domain with this build versus this build, so the buffs from the domain don't matter too much. And I found that this build right now is really good for solo Zhongli. However, the other build that we're about to swap to is going to be better for team comp. So if maybe I'm in co-op and somebody else is doing the damage, it's kind of a support DPS / burst build, and it is better as far as if you have other characters to swap off of. Like if I'm playing with a friend and I have 2 characters to swap to, or if I'm playing solo and have my full party to end up swapping to, it is going to be better to use this second build with Zhongli. The current physical damage build is if you're using him as your main and you don't swap off of him that much. So anyways, let me swap all of my gear right here. So the whole point of this Zhongli build is most of all reliant on all of your geo damage and your elemental burst. So I'm just going to hop down here and show you guys that even with me saying that, you know, this is going to be a better build for co-op, it's still going to end up being a really, really good build, as you can see, just for normal damage. Like you can get away with using either or. It's just from my testing, it seemed like the full-on physical build was going to end up being better for group play. But basically what I'm going to be doing is throwing down my steelies, throwing down my albedo flower so that we can get that resonance going, which you can see our geo damage alone per tick is doing insane numbers. Like, look at this. I can literally stand here and just wait for him to die. That's why I like this build. This is my build. This is the build that I have used on Zhongli. Regardless of all the tips and tricks that I've seen online, this is the build that I use for him. And it is extremely effective, and I love it. And oh my god, it is powerful, especially because of the ult. That's what I like most about it. The fact that we're doing 70k ults now that the 1.3 update is here is absolutely insane. Yeah. So anyways, the build that we're going to be using with this is still going to end up being like a full-on DPS build, but the whole point is that it works very well with other characters. So the fact that we have the geo resonance going on, the fact that we're, you know, having everything else go down on the ground, and you can see our attacks are still doing really good as well. Like, it's not like he's useless with his physical attacks now. The point being is any Zhongli mains before the 1.3 update, your main abilities were just useless. Like your auto attacks were just super duper weak. But you can see that now we can still do damage and keep up with the rest of them. But we're not going to be doing as good auto attacks as some of the R5 stars. However, that said, it compensates with the other abilities. And like I said, this is the absolute best build I found for a full-on support DPS. And you're still going to be doing lots and lots of damage. So I want to give a heads up too that this build right now, I'm still kind of working on it because I'm actually using an artifact that I don't normally use right now, but we'll talk about that in a bit. So the difference being, first and foremost, is that we're going to be using deathmatch because we need that extra crit rate instead of having the physical damage. Plus, for my team comp, I would rather have the Crescent Pike on my Zhao just because he's going to be doing a lot more damage and end up being, you know, a much higher damage character just in general. And I like having the extra physical damage on Zhao just because I find that his main attacks just don't really keep up with my Zhongli otherwise. So this way we can end up having that extra crit rate. Also, you can see our crit rate is really good and our crit damage is slowly getting better as well. Like that's the thing. I love this spear. I love this build. This is my favorite. This is what I want. So we're actually going to be rocking a Nobly set for the Elemental Burst, which is our ultimate ability having 20% more damage. And then the Petra set, which is giving us 15% geo damage. That's where the resonance comes in, but it also ends up stacking on top with our ultimate ability. So let's look at the artifacts. So this one you can see is pretty ideal outside of that defense roll. Swap that off and then you're good. Again, you don't need to be super duper picky about what parts you end up using for the Noblesse. It's most of all just focusing on those substats and on the main stat being the stats that you want. So hey, there you go. So that's a really good one. The feather, as you can see, thank God, is actually a really, really good one just because, you know, any of the extra HP, it's going to help Zhongli. Like, you don't have to worry about having HP as a substat anymore on this character since 1.3, and that is just a beautiful thing. I love it. The problem is I still get a lot of defense on all of my stuff. Like, it's disgusting. So you can see here I'm actually just rocking kind of a same, you know, just a standard thing right here. Let me actually see. Is this one better? It's got the energy recharge, but it's got that, it's got the crit rate, and then it's got the energy recharge and stuff. Whereas this one's got a little bit of attack and a little bit more of the HP. So I don't know. It depends. You could end up pick your poison, you know, kind of work it out, go for whatever you want. The whole ideal point is that you have to have the 2-2 set. And then for the goblet, I got really lucky and got a Noblesse goblet that actually has the Geo bonus. You can see that it rolled a little bit higher into the defense than I wanted, but the attack on it is pretty good. The crit rate is actually not bad. And the thing is that now energy recharge isn't a problem anymore because of the fact that this build is so built around his ultimate ability doing a lot of damage. And the thing is, I can literally have my ult up before the cooldown timer with this build just because the energy regen is so high, and it's a lot of fun. So this is a black sheep. This is the one that I still don't have ideal yet. Right now, for the sake of this video, I swapped over to this artifact just so I can show you guys what my damage is going to be, because otherwise for me, normally when I'm doing my normal farms and stuff like that, I actually have Zhao using this one. And for my Zhongli, I'm working on leveling up this one, which you can see can end up being pretty good just because it's got the attack and the HP on it. This one ended up obviously rolling a lot better for the substats, but again, beggars can't be choosers when it comes to having the primary stat that you want as well as the substats. So hopefully, fingers crossed, this doesn't roll into Elemental Mastery because, but otherwise, you know, it is my third of the Petra set, which means that technically speaking, I could even rock this. You know, if this ended up rolling better and just didn't end up rolling any of the assassin towards defense, then I could just end up rocking, you know, the point is rocking a crit damage hat, because you're getting so much crit rate from the weapon and stuff like that. And that is my Zhongli build. Now, the thing is, out of the two different builds, like I said, I've tested it out. This build is better for the team. You're going to complete dungeons and domains and everything like that so much faster with this build. It also has a lot more survivability just because of the fact that you're casting your ult a lot more, means enemies are going to be petrified a lot more. And on top of them, you know, on top of them being petrified, it's going to help out the team a lot more because the ult is going to be doing a lot more damage with the petrification, rather than doing a physical build where you're slowly chipping away at their health, you know. Now, again, as far as if you're just using Zhongli completely 100% solo and 100% towards DPS, the physical build is going to be better. If I'm joining up with a bunch of people and the only character I can use is Zhongli, heck, maybe I would end up going towards the physical build just because it means that I would be able to keep up with everybody as far as damage is concerned. But if you're synergizing with other players, this build is better. I've tried and true, tested it out, and personally speaking, I just rock this build for everything anyways, even though the physical build is fun. You know, his ult is just so cool, and I love the pulsating Geo damage out of these, because what I usually do, again, is just boop, boop, bop, and that is ×3, doing like 3 to 4k Geo damage just passively right there, on top of all of the other damage that I'm doing with the rest of my party. Right now, again, one last thing I gotta mention is that if you don't already know, the fact is that when you have a party of characters, you can actually use 2 different characters of the same element to end up gaining certain benefits. So the reason that I'm actually doing extra damage is because my enduring rock passive. So by having 2 Geo characters in the party, our shield strength is increased by 15%, and then characters protected by a shield do 15% more damage. They also will lower Geo resistant by 20%. So basically, you tag an enemy while you have a shield, and then you end up using your ult, and then you're going to end up doing 20% more damage. It's just absolutely astonishingly beautiful. And then for right now, just because Zhao's the new thing, that's why I have Zhao and Jean. You know, otherwise, if you want absolute damage, like something that would stomp my current team comp build, you would actually have 2 fire characters, because it's going to increase your damage by 25% as well. With Geo Resonance, like Enduring Rock, and the 2 pyro characters in the party, and Bennett. I hate Bennett. That's why I don't use him or anything like that, but my friends do. You can easily hit over 100k with Zhongli's ult. And that is a beautiful thing to see. Anyways, hopefully you found this video helpful, gamers, and if you did, smash like, sub for more, buy the merch you want to support the channel. I'm going to end up having a lot more of these character videos, so hopefully this was something that you enjoyed, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Sayonara and stay up, gamers.